I am Delores Boyd. I am Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for the Alabama Department of Archives and History. And for all of the trustees, many of whom are here, if you just raise your hands, those who are here, wonderful, wonderful. And for our director, Steve Murray, and for our staff, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Alabama's Home for History. This year, 2021, actually marks the 120th anniversary of the legislation which enacted the law creating this Alabama Department of Archives history. What many people don't acknowledge is that our state was the first ever in the nation to create a state-funded Department of Archives and History. Today we are gathering to mark another significant milestone in the mission we had when we started 120 years ago, and we continue to have today. Stated simply, our core mission is to tell the story of the people of Alabama by not only preserving the records and artifacts of historical value, but also promoting a better understanding of Alabama history. And today's milestone is important because who and what we portray and exhibit in this grand building, whether it's mounted on the walls, mounted on the floors, can be as important to promoting a better understanding of Alabama history as the books and the periodicals you find in the research room, or the artifacts and memorabilia in storage, or the programmatic thrust of the various workshops and projects and seminars produced here. Our commitment is to telling the full story, good, bad, the in-between, and to including all the people of Alabama, irrespective of station or status, race or ethnicity, national origin, or gender. The story we tell today pays tribute to two path-breaking women. Pattie Ruffner Jacobs, a white woman, and Amelia Boynton Robinson, a black woman. Both simply refuse to accept this state's reservation of the right to vote to white men only. Neither was born in Alabama, but both lived and persevered here for decades in separate struggles to expand that precious, empowering right to vote. First to white women, and next to black women and black men. The strength of their conviction, courage, and labor, which was often volunteered, often uncompensated, and often underappreciated, undergirded the success of their efforts. For the tremendous and lasting positive difference these two women made in the lives of all of Alabama's citizens, and for the high honor and distinction they brought to this state and to this nation, we at the Archives have chosen to memorialize them grandly, artistically, and permanently with beautifully rendered busts that will be placed in Statuary Hall. And if you're not familiar with that commonly used phrase around here, it is the most prominent area in the South Side lobby that's prominent because of the quantity, the number, and the size of the busts and the statues that are there commemorating distinguished Alabamians. These two women will now join 6 men with similarly distinguished legacies of service to the state. As a matter of fact, they represent the first new additions to that area since 1990 and 1991, when the great Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver were dedicated. We're so very honored to have our governor, Kay Ivey, share this occasion. For her own trajectory to this state's highest executive office is evidence of the power of the right to vote. Now, I do want to identify and especially welcome some relatives and guests who have close connections to one of our honorees, Amelia Boynton Robinson. And I might add that our second honoree, while she has grandchildren in Birmingham, none of them were able to make it with us today. Representing, though, Amelia Boynton Robinson, who died in 20th, granddaughter, Carver Boynton, who's accompanied by somewhere is her niece, Sharon Say. Thank you. Betty Boynton, the widow of Mrs. Boynton has with her cousins, Jamal Sanders, and Claudia Rose Touré. Did I exclude anybody? If so, just stand so we can acknowledge all of you, family and friends. Thank you so much. I do want you to know that visiting with us from Tuskegee is someone who considered Mrs. Robinson like a mother, and that's Attorney Lateefah Muhammad, who's with us from Tuskegee. Thank you so much. Is someone who has authored a biography of Mrs. Robinson called Matriarch of the Voting Rights Movement. Ronnie Barnes, would you stand? He tells me that it actually is an upgrade of Mrs. Robinson's memoir, Bridge Across Jordan. We had the opportunity to meet and have a book signing for her back in the 90s. So we're happy to have you, Mr. Barnes. It's always a treat to have the artist present and able to share with us her inspiration. I have no doubt that when these busts are unveiled, you will be in awe of what she has created. I want you to welcome the artist, Clydetta, Fulmer, and I want you to know that she is quite a pathbreaker in her own right. She has acquired quite a reputation because she has contributed significantly to public art in this community, which is her native community. A native Alabamian, born and still lives in South Montgomery County, my neck of the woods. Has her studio there. If you've not seen her Rosa Parks statue at the foot of Dexter Avenue, don't leave here without seeing it. If you haven't seen her statues of General Richard Montgomery across from City Hall, please visit it. We're so happy to have you. Come and give us a few reflections on your experience.
Thank you so much, Governor Ivey, trustees of the Alabama Department of Archives and History, Ms. Boyd, Director Murray, staff members, distinguished guests and friends, I want to thank you for the opportunity to sculpt the bronze portraits of two outstanding Alabama women, Pattie Ruffner Jacobs and Amelia Boynton Robinson. This opportunity has been a blessing for me as I have come to know more about the lives of these great women. I have been inspired by their courage and determination. I've had the opportunity to work with the talented and dedicated professionals of the archives, and we are fortunate to have such careful conservators to preserve the history and legacy of our state, and who serve their patrons so competently and pleasantly. I've had the opportunity to meet with other people who helped me to achieve an accurate likeness. Elena Curry-Norman, who advised me about the hairstyle on the statue of Rosa Parks, is here. She advised me on the hairstyle for the statue of Amelia Boynton Robinson. And also, she and I were discussing the jewelry that Ms. Robinson wore in the different sculptures, and Ms. Norman said, well, I used to sell that kind of jewelry, and I think I might have one of those little sets. And so she was able to provide that jewelry that's now a part of that sculpture. So I appreciated that. And then Lateefah Muhammad advised me via a Zoom call about a face that she knew and loved, the face of Amelia Boynton Robinson. And I appreciate the valuable input. The experiences of making these sculptures at this time has been a bright beacon of hope during the dark days of the pandemic. In spite of many delays due to various quarantines and protocols, we have persevered, and we've made it through the process and have come to this good day. And we hope that there are better and brighter days ahead. It is an honor for me to have my work included in the collection of the Archives and History Department. I remember coming to the archives when I was a child, as so many Alabama school children do. I remember being awed by the beauty of the marble halls. My imagination was captured by the various artifacts and exhibitions, and I was inspired as I studied the portraits and other works of art. I would not have thought that it was possible that my work would one day be a part of this institution. And I hope that these sculptures that are being unveiled today will inspire all who see them with the sense of their own possibilities. And I hope that these sculptures will be a blessing to all who see them and will be an inspiration as reminders of these great Alabama women. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those fascinating insights. I suspect I speak for all the non-artists in the room when I say all we can do is salute you. It's good to know, but we know what we don't know. And we're so grateful that you are the artist. Thank you for your gift. You've heard a little bit about the process of sculpting these wonderful busts. You can't leave here without at least some introduction to the subjects of the bust. We could have a 3-hour program on each of these honorees, Pattie Jacobs and Amelia Robinson. And we may very well do that and have you come back and give us hour-long lectures. But today, we've invited 2 people who know a lot about them. And we're going to have them give us just a few insights so you don't go away just thinking, what a nice bust, and don't have any understanding about what these women did that is worthy of famous and lasting honor. For insights on Pattie Ruffner Jacobs, we've invited Dr. Marlene Rikard. She is Professor Emerita of History at Samford University, and she's written a lot about the movement in Alabama and across this nation to expand the vote to women. She's written about the leaders of that movement, not the least of whom was Pattie Jacobs. And after her presentation, we're going to hear from somebody who falls in the category of a special friend of Amelia Boynton Robinson, someone who considered her a mentor, someone who attended church with her regularly, same church, someone who lived in the area, someone who knew her well. She's also a friend of the archives. She's a member of our Friends of the Archives, and she's been a long-time supporter of the program. So, Dr. Rikard, if you would start us off, and afterwards, I'm going to ask Mrs. Wimberly to follow you and tell us a little bit about these special women.
I'm really grateful to Steve Murray, Scotty Kirkland, Alex Colvin, and all the staff here at the Archives for recognizing and highlighting the role of women in the history of Alabama. And I think it must have been a very difficult task to choose just two. And two that would join the roster of famous men that I now know is called Statuary Hall. I'm not sure I knew that before. I just always called it the back foyer. But I hope in some way that these two will represent a lot more women of Alabama. Pattie Ruffner Jacobs is well known primarily for her leadership of the suffrage movement in our state. Her accomplishments in that arena and beyond are impressive. She was founder of the Birmingham Equal Suffrage Association. She was president of the Alabama Equal Suffrage Association. She was leader in the 1915 legislative battle for a referendum on giving women the vote in the state. It was a masterful campaign, but it failed. She then became a speaker for suffrage on the national circuit. And this was because they had tried the states' rights approach, didn't work. She supported a federal amendment. She was an officer in the National American Woman Suffrage Association, what a long name, and its successor, the League of Women Voters. She was the first National Democratic Committee woman from Alabama. Now that listing is the culmination of the story of Pattie Ruffner Jacobs, competition and the results of the disruption of trade in the Civil War. His father vainly sought success in several different southern cities. In the early 1880s, he moved his wife and family of 4 children to Nashville. Pattie, the youngest, received a good education at Ward's Seminary for young ladies. The other siblings began to scatter. Sister Bertha married and moved to Birmingham, and Pattie enjoyed spending some summer vacations with her sister in Birmingham. As her father's drinking increased and his businesses began to flounder, the family split apart. In 1893, Mother Virginia and teenage Pattie moved in with Bertha. Living with an often resentful older sister, Pattie characterized herself as living in genteel poverty. She envied the opportunities that her more affluent Virginia cousins and longed for a university education. Her dreams and her depression were confided in her diary. She said, "I would give most anything to be able to go to college, Vassar, Wellesley, or Cornell, but it is a vain wish, for there is no such future for me." She compensated for this absence of additional formal education by this voracious reading list, really intimidating. She used her talents to earn spending money, selling hand-painted party cards, becoming a paid vocalist for local Birmingham churches, and writing a newspaper society column. Now, Birmingham was not old Mobile, not old Montgomery. It was a raw, new city. It was developing its own social elite, and that included industrialists, businessmen, and young bachelors who were eager to make their fortune, but also were perfectly willing to take a talented, beautiful young woman to the theater, to dances, and other social events. So Pattie did not lack for suitors in Birmingham. Among them was Solon Jacobs, 10 years her elder, who had come to Birmingham from Kansas as an employee of the railroad. But he was soon into other, more profitable business endeavors. As she lost her heart to Solon, Pattie resisted marriage. She had the examples of her mother's failed relationship and also a divorce of Sister Julia from an abusive husband. And she feared, according to her diary, losing individuality in the sea of conventionality. She loves those flowery purple phrases. She delayed a decision by persuading her mother's brother to accept some paintings in exchange for funds to allow her to go to New York City for 1 year to study music, art, and languages. Now, this was the same uncle that she had applied to for money to attend college, and he said it was not the role of women to go to college. So she lived frugally with 8 other young women, and she relished the excitement of the city and her studies, as well as the daily letters that she got from Solon Jacobs. In 1897, she returned to Birmingham. She accepted Solon's proposal, and she married the following year. With financial resources to help with household duties and care for the 2 daughters that she bore, she continued to expand her experience through travel and cultural activities. Now, as you visit the Justice Not Favor exhibit, you will learn more about Pattie, her colleagues, and about the parallel suffrage movements that were organized by African American women living in segregated Alabama. And you will learn about the accomplishments of a number of other remarkable Alabama women. Pattie and Amelia Boynton Robinson are only representative of a host of Alabama women who deserve more research and more recognition. Thank you.
This is a beautiful day that our Lord has made. Today, the Alabama Department of Archives and History has reached another milestone in its commitment to deliver an inclusive presentation of our Alabama history, yours and mine. I'm honored to be here to express my thanks to Director Steve Murray and staff for asking me to represent Selma on this planning team for the state historic project that we are witnessing this morning. As we recognize and honor 2 of Alabama's leading female advocates for voting rights, and I would say Sister Pattie Ruffner Jacobs and Sister Amelia Boynton Robinson, my mentor. I started working with her in my church with the Voting Rights League that was founded by C.J. Adams, her husband, and others in the early 1929-30s. And Bruce and I guess we were about 13, 14, maybe 15 years old. And we would go down to the meeting in the basement education department, and they would put us to work. So we would start working with the people and with the papers and explaining, reading, and helping them to understand how important it is to vote, because to vote is to live. And they also admonished us that when we became 21, during my time you had to be 21 to register to vote, to go down and apply. Because of these experiences and working with Mrs. Boynton and the Voters League and the other civil rights leaders in Alabama, in 1957, I became a registered voter. My teachers were not registered. Many of the people that I worked with and other educators were not registered. But it was because of these early experiences in teaching and working with Mrs. Boynton, and I regret that Bruce was not able to come be here with us. He started with us with this project. And I'm sure that he's smiling and very, very happy, and I'm glad to see you here, Carver. And I see another young man from First Baptist Church that we're proud of, and he's here with us, Attorney Bruce Boynton. I think I saw he's here. But what I want you to know is that because of all of these things, many, many great leaders and celebrities and people of all of the civil rights movements in the United States and all over the world visited, sat at her table in her house on Lapsley Street, Selma, Alabama. Who would have thought that two women, one from Birmingham and one from Selma, would be so strong to stand for the right to vote, to fight for the right to vote during the women's suffrage movement, Ms. Jacob, and then followed by Mrs. Boynton during the voting rights movement. And you know what, Alabama? We may be first for that, as Mrs. Brooks stated, but guess what? We are first in a lot of things, such a history. And be proud to be an Alabamian. Everywhere I go, they say, where are you from? I said, from Alabama. Girl, you from? I said, yeah. I said, honey, if it wasn't for Alabama, you wouldn't be what you got today. You got the right to vote. The women's suffrage leadership was here back in the day in the 1800s. I wasn't born. So I want you to know today this is a special day. And we have stood on the shoulders of these great women. We stood on their shoulders. Now, but as Miss Boynton would say, get off of my shoulder. Yeah. It's time for you to work. And I'm happy that I had such a great mentor to instill in me the importance of fighting for the right to live, for freedom, and the pursuit of happiness that is set for us through our Constitution of the United States of America, the greatest country in the world. And so I say to you, and I say to myself, we stood on their shoulders. Now, we must walk their way. They set the example. And their way say, vote. As Mrs. Boynton would always say, a voteless people is a hopeless people. May God bless us. May God bless our great state of Alabama and the United States of America. And I am just thankful and happy that I'm here to speak for my side of Alabama as we unveil these great women statues in the hall. And look at us. We got a woman governor of Alabama. I can go on and all of y'all know it. I'm for the recognition, preservation, and the inclusiveness, and we are very, very fortunate to have a director who has dedicated and is doing this work for us, and we ask you to support them. And Mrs. Boynton dedicated more than 10 decades on the front lines of the struggle for racial equality and social justice. Her work and leadership contributed to the history of the Black African American struggles, along with our white brothers, for human rights for all Americans. Thank you.
These were merely teasers. So when we publicize a program highlighting the lives and the legacies of Pattie Jacobs and Amelia Boynton Robinson, you better believe we'll know on whom to call, and you will be here to listen to them. When our governor became governor, the 54th governor of the state of Alabama in 2017, the newspaper headlines and many, the broadcast journalists underscored the fact that she was the second female governor of the state of Alabama. I believe the more historic fact is this. Ivey was the first woman to become governor after serving long, distinguished, and honorable tenures in not one, but two elected constitutional offices. She was first elected state treasurer and re-elected, serving from 2003 to 2011. She was then elected and re-elected lieutenant governor, serving from 2011 until 2017 when she became our governor. And in November of 2018, of course, she was re-elected governor and has already announced her intentions of being re-elected governor. Clearly, Ivey, when she was growing up in Camden, understood the power of the vote. And perhaps more so than many who have served us in high office, she has mastered the art of marshaling voters to vote for her. And we are absolutely honored that this path-breaking, trailblazing governor herself has always aligned herself with the mission of the archives. She remains a friend of the archives. We are honored to have her here today, and I suspect she has some unique reflections on the importance of our tribute today to Pattie Jacobs and to Amelia Boynton Robinson. Please join me in welcoming our Governor, Kay Carver.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Special thanks to Judge Boyd and the members and the trustees of the Department of Archives and History, and to the representatives of the Jacobs and Boynton Robinson families who are here today. It is a pleasure to join you and to share in this moment. These two women that we honor today gave so much history to the great state of Alabama. The beautiful bronze likenesses that we are unveiling this morning of Pattie Ruffner Jacobs and Amelia Boynton Robinson are the first new additions to the Archives Statuary Hall in 25 years. It's very fitting that the first two women added to the Century Hall are both known for their lifelong efforts to extend the right to vote to all Alabamians. Earlier this year, I had the opportunity to tour the archive's latest exhibit space upstairs about justice and unfavored Alabama women and the vote. I learned more about the work of Pattie Ruffner Jacobs and Amelia Boynton Robinson and countless other trailblazers where efforts throughout the modern era helped bring about real and lasting change, both in Alabama and in the nation. Women in public office today, whether elected or appointed, school teachers or first responders, owe a great debt of gratitude to the women endured in these two beautiful statues, as well as many others like them that played a crucial role in creating equality. And as Alabama's second governor of our state's history, hearing the stories of these heroes made me so proud and appreciative of their efforts. Without efforts like Pattie Ruffner Jacobs and Amelia Boynton Robinson, there is no Secretary Condoleezza Rice and no Governor Ivey. As your governor, I work every day to live up to the examples, and Alabama will always be a place where anyone can find success, regardless of race, creed, or gender. Thank you all so much for being here today. May God continue to bless each of you and the great state of Alabama.
We're getting closer to the moment of the unveiling. Thank you so very much, Governor, for pausing to share this occasion with us. Just a couple more remarks. You heard Dr. Rikard refer to the League of Women Voters, a permanent organization which still exists today, so it's so appropriate that we pause to hear from its current president. And we will start with her remarks, Kathy Jones. And then I'll ask Dr. Alex Colvin, who's our public programs curator, to follow her and get us ready for the unveiling, talk about the process. And she has a couple of announcements of things happening here at the archives we want to make sure you're aware of. Let's start with the League of Women Voters, Kathy.
I think I get to say good afternoon. I was looking at the clock. It's changed time zones. time began. So I want to say greetings to the Honorable Governor Ivey, esteemed guests and dignitaries. And the League of Women Voters is so grateful to the Alabama Department of Archives and History for educating the public about the history of Alabama, as well as telling the stories about the people of Alabama, which connects us, the past to the future. And just this last year with 2020, when we're all dealing with COVID, we actually had the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which enshrined the right of women to be able to vote and participate in the political process. And we also celebrated the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, which was so important to eliminate the Jim Crow laws, which had suppressed the rights to vote for African Americans and so many others. And it gave them finally the right to vote as well. So it's appropriate that we honor these two women who served such an important part in the passage of both of these voting rights bills. And I wanted to say that these two women symbolize what it means to be a patriot. They pushed and they challenged and they sacrificed to upend the status quo of all for Alabama and to achieve voting rights for all people. Pattie Ruffner Jacobs and Amelia Boynton Robinson embodied the strength of character, determination, and sheer bravery that we should all strive to have. And they struggled to claim the right to vote and the ability to influence the political and legal process which they had been denied access to. And even in the face of personal threats, insults, and physical injury, they did not back down. They knew the significance of the struggle that they were working to overcome. They wanted to be able to participate in the political process, to be able to cast a ballot, to know that their vote counted. It's a fundamental right of citizenship to be able to elect the leaders who reflect your values and to be able to help shape the decisions that are made at the local, state, and federal level. And listening to the stories today, it strikes me again that these women did not just fight for themselves. They fought for their children, their grandchildren, their families, their communities. And through their victories, they created opportunities that have made the lives of all of us so much better. Not just Alabama, but throughout the country. And today, Alabama is it's a lot more equitable place to be than it was then, but there's so much work that's left undone. Democracy depends upon us to all remain constantly vigilant and to shine a light on political systems that are opaque, corrupt, or make it difficult or impossible for citizens to have their voices heard or to have their votes counted. Mothers, daughters, and grandmothers continue to step up, speak out, get involved, saying, enough, this isn't right. This isn't fair, this must change. They are seeking to, when you seek needed change, it's typically not easy. And you can see from the stories of both of these women that you get the strongest opposition from those who are in power, who do not want to share the power that they have. Civic engagement, dedication, and perseverance, like these two remarkable women demonstrated, is the foundational cornerstone of democracy. And as we honor them today and carry their examples with us, we help our elected leaders make better decisions and ensure that they're accountable to the people that they represent. And I would be remiss, as the League of Women Voters president, to ask Governor Ivey and others to please call upon the senators from Alabama, Shelby, and Tuberville to please vote for passage of the John Lewis voting rights. And thank you so much. I'm glad to be here today.
Hello everyone, my name is Colvin and I'm the Public Programs Curator here at the Alabama Department of Archives and History. I would like to thank all of our speakers and everyone for attending today as we honor these remarkable women and how they shaped Alabama history. We are mere minutes away from reconvening in Statuary Hall so that we can unveil and dedicate these beautiful new statues. But before we can, I have a few quick announcements. First off, I would like to thank all of our donors. If you look on the back of your program, you can see the lead donors to our 100 for Women of the 100th campaign, which made today possible, but also helped fund ongoing efforts to commemorate the 19th Amendment. I would also like to invite you, after the dedication, to go to the second floor to see the exhibit you've heard so much about, Justice Not Favored, Alabama Women and the Vote, which features Pattie Ruffner and Amelia Boynton Robinson, but also so many other female activists, politicians, and female-led organizations that sought to make a better Alabama and the equality for all its citizens. Also, I want to make sure you're aware that next week, the archives will be hosting the Alabama Women Hall of Fame, and they'll be inducting 2 new members to the Hall of Fame, Alabama suffragist Frances Griffin and civil rights activist Vivian Malone Jones. Today is the last day to register for that ceremony and luncheon, and we have a kiosk available in the lobby for you to do so. So, without further ado, it is now time for the main event. We're going to reconvene in Statuary Hall and unveil and dedicate these new statues. Pattie Ruffner Jacobs, 1875 to 1935. Alabama Equal Suffrage Association President, 1912 to 1916. National American Woman Suffrage Association Board Member, 1916 to 1918. League of Women Voters, Board Secretary, 1927. Sculpted by Clydetta Fulmer, 2020.
Turn your attention to the other side of the lobby.
Dallas County Voters League, 1933. Organizer and participant, Selma to Montgomery March, 1965. Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom Medal, 1990. Sculpted by Clydetta Fulmer, 2021.
Helps, doesn't it?
Certainly does. Certainly does. It's a great day here today in the state of Alabama, and always a great day in the city of Tuskegee.
So now I'm seeing that Queen Mother lives on. What do you see with an event like this?
I think that the major thing we recognize at an event like this is how far we've come. And Chief, I have to share with you, so many young people don't recognize how much progress we've made and the sacrifices that the people made who got us here. But we see the progress today in the unveiling here in the state of Alabama, Department of History and Archives, in this major building. She's one of only 2 women having a bust put up for her in recognition of what she contributed to the state, to the nation, and to the world. And you know what she contributed to us as a people and to our community.
Absolutely.
Amelia Boynton Robinson, she was one who encouraged us all to remember the importance of the vote. She sacrificed to make it happen. She encouraged us toward minority land ownership and to encourage youth to get involved, stay involved, to vote, and to be conscious of what needed to be done.
Absolutely. So what do you say to the people who thought of the thing, developed it into a reality, and now it stands still for everybody to see forever?
Well, I say thank you, first of all. Thank you for those people who had the presence of mind to think to nominate her and present her and her accomplishments, to recognize what she did. Not only herself, it wasn't about her, it was about her community.
Absolutely.
It was about her family. It was about Selma and Tuskegee and the state of Alabama and the South itself, and then to the nation. We recognize what she contributed, and it's finally being recognized where it will be seen for years and years to come, for many to recognize, not only in our community, from all cultures and all communities, to recognize the sacrifice of Miss Amelia Boynton Robinson.
What did we witness here today, and is it of any value?
Yes, I believe that this is a very monumental moment in the state of Alabama. And I'll tell you why. This particular building holds all of Alabama's history. And the fact that the board of directors of this institution, the Alabama Department of Archives and History, chose Amelia Boynton Robinson and Pattie Ruffner Jacobs to be the first women to have their bust unveiled here, in my opinion, represents a mindset now that exists within the leadership of those persons that serve on that particular board. I know Steve Murray, who is the director in particular, and I know some of the board members as well. And over the course of 2020, after the killing and murder of George Floyd, he was particularly moved that Alabama has not done enough in terms of exposing the history of African Americans in this state. And so that is a part of what I see that this day represents, that the archives is now saying, we want Alabama and the world to know that Alabama is looking at its own history in a different perspective now, and we want not only Alabamians to do so, but the entire world.
So Alabama is doing the Sankofa thing then, right?
Indeed, because, you know, Mrs. Boynton Robinson started in Alabama back in the 20s when she first came to Tuskegee as a student. And then after leaving Georgia, when she completed Tuskegee, having taught in Georgia, through Dr. Carver and the movement to have black folks involved in the extension work, she came back to Alabama in the 1920s, late 1920s, early 30s, became a registered voter. And as you and I know, Chief, she didn't start just then with the voting rights movement. Her mother was involved in the same suffrage movement that they talked about Mrs. Jacobs having done here in Alabama. Mrs. Anna Hicks Platts was in the movement in Georgia.
Absolutely.
During that same time, or shortly thereafter, with Mrs. Jacobs, that Mrs. Jacobs was involved. And so Queen Mother told us how at 10 years of age, she was in the horse and buggy with her mother, passing out leaflets to women about their right to be able to vote. And so when she got older, Queen Mother and Mrs. Boynton Robinson, that memory and that experience with her mother stayed with her. And it evolved throughout the lives of that 104 years that she lived in wanting to see that people would be actively involved in the voting rights movement in this nation.
And mentioning living, this means that Queen Mother still lives, right?
Oh, indeed it does mean that. Indeed. I have no doubt about that. And that's why it is that the work that she did, it succeeds even death.
Absolutely.
And she will continue to live on. And certainly now, with her being recognized in the state of Alabama as she's being recognized, I mean, the first two women, you know, this is going to keep her living even from now on. It is a monumental day, as I said, and this is a monument and a memorial that will not be removed because of this great history that comes with it.
Absolutely, cannot be erased. And I know two people, they tell me that as long as your name is called, you live on. So I know two people who will be calling her name as long as we are around, right?
Absolutely.
You and I.
Absolutely, Chief, because you know we got some great history with this lady that we are honoring today.
Absolutely.
And there's no way in the world that we'll ever forget her.
I be telling people all the time about she requiring you and I to take her to Sheriff Jim Clark's funeral when he died.
Sure did.
In order to show the kind of woman with the quality character that she was.
Absolutely. And I mean, she sat there as if she could have been a part of the family.
That's
when
right.
you look at it, and all of what we know of that terrible history that Jim Clark brought upon her. But you know, God always take bad and turn it into something good.
Especially for us as black people.
You know, yes.
Everything that happens for us that's good happens in his time, not in our time.
Not in our time. It may look bad to us at the time it's happening. And I can see it in my mind's eye now when he was bum rushing her down that sidewalk.
Absolutely.
To the county jail, the city jail in Selma that time, when of all the people who were protesting, he sought her out. You know, I guess because she was the leader.
Sure did mess with the wrong woman. Go ahead.
He absolutely messed with the wrong woman.
Go ahead.
But you know, oftentimes that'll happen. If they can cut the head off the leader, they figure, you know, the rest of the body will just die, right?
Right.
But she went up in that jail cell and they told her, no, Miss Boynton, you go on.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be there. And sure enough, they followed. And then they started singing those old Negro spirituals that she loved so much, you know. And all of that history, man, yeah, that's in us, you know, right. and death will not take that away, because I'm always talking to young people, which I got that from her, you know. Mm-hmm. Queen Mother always emphasized, get with the young people, because they are the ones that will carry this on.
That's right.
And every opportunity I get, man, I'm doing it. I talk with young people, and I say to some of us old folks, don't forget the young people, because if you can get into the young people that spirit of pressing on and doing the work, they will grow up with that in them.
That's right.
And then they will become us.
They'll stand on our shoulders long enough to do what Queen Mother said. Now, when you get ready and prepared, get off of our shoulders. That's the only time I ever heard her use hell.
Yeah.
Get the hell off my shoulders and go get the job
work.
done.
That's right. That's what she said.
Well,
and so yes, we got to perpetuate it. We got to keep it going, and I think that because it is in us, there's no way that it's going to just die out and go.
This means to me that Queen Mother will never die. What does this day mean to you?
You know, this is, gosh, wait a minute. You messed me up with that one because I hadn't thought of it in that terms. She was such a strong, amazing woman that her contribution, we could stand here all day and name off the things that she contributed. And she had such a passion for people. So it's so important and befitting and, you know, by far too long to have her solidified in this way or memorialized in this way through the state. I hadn't thought of it in the terms that she will never die, because I think for many of us that knew her and were influenced by her, her words, her efforts, her initiatives, her passion would never die. But I think that is a wonderful way of capturing what it will mean to future generations who come through these halls, who maybe miss the lessons, miss the stories, particularly since it's not taught in school. Maybe they are not in a Selma or a Birmingham or a Tuskegee to hear these stories passed down. But not only do we have a woman in the hall, but a black woman in the hall. And I think for all of us and for those that come after us, her legacy will never die.
And sir, as you stand beside her, what do you think you've etched yourself into the family? How does it make you feel to share the love, trust, and respect that exist in that family coming from Queen Mother, Amelia Boynton Robinson, through Carver Boynton?
I am very honored. It's been a privilege to be a part of someone's life and the legacy of her grandmother and her father. Actually, I got a chance to meet him before he passed away. And,
very good.
We had a very spiritual connection. And even though it was through FaceTime, it was still a very spiritual moment. I felt his spirit, and he also felt mine. He said to me before I hung up on the FaceTime that he said, "Take care of my daughter." And at that time, we were just friends. I was just being a friend, taking her to go see her dad, not knowing that I'll be responsible for taking care of her.
Well, all right now. And Ms. Carver, how does it feel for you knowing that this group of people cared enough to initiate this major project?
Indebted. I think that I speak for my family when I say indebted. You know, long time coming, so much more to be done, but you know, it takes sometimes a group of people to step outside of things and outside of the norm and the day-to-day that we easily get caught in to push forward things of this sort. And I think for us that would want to see it done, but are not always in a position, maybe we're in a position to influence, but not always in a position to execute, we are indebted.
Now, a closer question to the real situation. How does it make you feel to walk in the steps of Queen Mother?
You know, I think honored. I think I knew her. I mean, not I think, I know. I mean, she was my grandmother. Knew her in a way that so many didn't know, or maybe knew only a portion of her. One of the things that's remarkable is on her passing, she had 3 funerals. All of them were about 4 hours long. All of them very different. But if you attended all of them or any of them, what you learn is that she was so multifaceted and so layered, yet so sweet and genuine in her spirit and her nature. So for me, there are lots of things that I carry out in terms of her influence. Some of it through my profession, a good part of it through my profession, and the limited number of black women that are in roles of mine, managing not only commercial centers, but nationally ranked commercial centers. I hold that position very highly to my heart because of where I have come from and the legacy before me. For those of her that know her, she was a stark businesswoman. I mean, she was about the business. And I think while I'm not always in position or placed in roles that are, you know, as vocal or on platforms, I should say, that's a better word, I always have the same platform that she has. I walk with her and walk in her legacy daily, particularly through her business initiative and moving forward women, particularly black women, but all women in positions that are unchartered.